Ladies and sinners, welcome to another Tuesday evening edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Kel Henderson. We're back at it again, where we talk all things Vegas sports, because this is IE Vegas. Hashtag IE Vegas. We gotta trademark that, right? Come on, Larry. I know you're listening. You listen to the shows. We gotta think about it. I mean, it can't be much. I don't know if anybody else is going to fight for it. IE Vegas, baby. The Sin City Sports Show. This is the, Christmas episode? Victory Tuesday. You gotta love Victory Tuesday. Victory Tuesday is always great. Why is it even better this week? Because the Raiders hoard a franchise record, or accomplished a franchise record, supposedly, against the rival. The Los Angeles, who should still be in San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll cover that a little bit more, go over the franchise record, talk about how the game was going and the progression aspect of it all. What's next for the Raiders? We got to talk about that. Taryn Rodriguez joins the show, as he always does, because he's an amazing teammate. Good evening, Kale. Have an awesome show. Would like to thank the Raiders for helping get rid of Brandon Staley. Your contributions mean a lot. Oh, and good game to the Raiders. They deserve the win. Yeah, that was a massacre, man. I'm not going to lie to you, Taryn. That felt like a college football game. I had never seen a professional team up 42-0 at halftime, ever. I didn't even watch, and I think I watched the first half of the Miami-Denver game. It wasn't 42-0 at half. I don't know, man. That was crazy. And, the Raiders did it with a rookie quarterback that's been struggling. Yeah. I don't know, man. I get it. The Chargers were without Justin Herbert. I definitely, that's an asterisk to me, because that guy is so talented. But even so, even with Justin there, I don't know if that defense stops it cold, man. I really don't. I don't know if that defense stops the Raiders the way they were moving the ball on that Chargers D. I don't see it, and it's kind of crazy. I don't know if you saw this or not, man. Maybe you can give me your thoughts on it. Rex Ryan went off on Brandon Staley weeks before he got fired. But I know for a fact that after that game, I tweeted, there's no way Brandon Staley has a job come Monday morning or come the next morning. There's just absolutely no possible way. And we were spot on that. Like, you cannot give up 63 points as a defensive head coach and expect to keep your job. You can't. I just don't see it. I don't see it. It is what it is, man. Like, this is a results business. There isn't a more results-based business, maybe other than college football, actually, with the way coaches are treated and stuff like that. But this isn't a more results-based business than the NFL. There's not one. You would be hard pressed, man. I saw Rex Ryan ripping Brandon Staley. He would do a better job of coaching, 100%. And if I were Rex Ryan, if he was even considered for the job, you take it. Here's the thing, and I have no problem saying this. Even though the Chargers are a rivalry, they got a more talented team. I think we have two better players in Devontae Adams and Max Crosby, but the Chargers are a better team overall. And he said, after your prediction, you should play the lottery. What do you mean? You mean when I said there's no way he has a job still? Something told me he was on borrowed time anyway, man. Brandon Staley was on borrowed time. But I'll say this. So we'll go ahead and dive into that. Coaching possibilities, and it matters because this is the division the Raiders are in, and the division just seems like it's going to get tougher and tougher, right? So Kansas City's Kansas City. They got one of the greatest coaches ever on their sideline in Andy Reid. Sean Payton and the Broncos are really turning stuff around. Absolutely killing it. Larry B, thanks for joining the show, man. Happy holidays to you guys. He said, and congrats to Bishop Gorman, the high school national champions. Absolutely, man. Bishop Gorman's a nationally ranked high school. They're producing D1 talent on a consistent basis, and there they go, winning a national title. That's awesome, by the way. Like, maybe you can answer this, Larry. How do teams get into that national tournament? Like, how do they get into that national spotlight? What are the requirements? Like, is it all of a sudden that specific playoff committee or league reaches out to you? I mean, it's crazy. Chargers are busting for Brock Bowers at this point. Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, what an amazing weapon that would be. Because I don't think you're. If there's one thing, there's no national tournament. It's just based off the rankings and who you play and stuff like that. I guess I shouldn't have said national tournament. They have national rankings. I guess what I'm saying is because you see Bosco play, what is it, IMFB or whatever it is. You see those two teams play each other every once in a while. I guess my point was how do these teams get in the ranking system? Is it based on just like the recruits they output? Like what is it? Max Prep basically ranks the best teams every year, and that's it. It's stupid. That does sound stupid. Okay, so there really is no requirements. Like they're about as efficient as, or they're less efficient than our college football playoff committee. Actually, I'm just kidding. That was a horrible low blow because I don't think the committee's gotten it wrong one year so far. Even with the four teams, right? I don't think the committee's gotten it wrong one year. Not one, including this year. Alabama was, to me, after that SEC championship win, Alabama felt like the most improved team. They felt like the toughest team in college football, and I totally believe they should have been number 4. Florida State, say what you want, if that guy, if their quarterback's healthy, if Jordan Travis is healthy, I think Florida State makes it into the playoff, but I also believe they get boat raced by Michigan. I truly do. I think Michigan would just beat the tar out of them. If Alabama and Florida State had a playoff, even with Jordan Travis healthy, had a playoff to get into that 4th seed, which would be really cool, right? Like a little wild card round for the 4th and 5th place team to get in there, to get into that. I mean, that would probably be more entertaining than what we've seen lately. I think Alabama would have boat raced Florida State as well. I just think Alabama was the better team. I think they're a better team right now than Texas. Texas just gets the nod because they beat them in, what was it, week 2 or week 3 of college football in Tuscaloosa. It's not a bad win, man. It's a great win. I think what hurt Texas was that loss to Oklahoma. They shouldn't have lost to them. They had a lead with a minute 30 left, but defenses are defenses, and the college football is college football now. Like the football is so slanted towards the offense, it's not even funny. Um, I wish number 1 could play number 2 each season, but unfortunately they don't. Yeah, you don't have to lose in high school football and schedule tough. Oh, and stay consistent too. Okay, you have to not lose. Got you. That's how you get ranked nationally. So you basically have to consistently be a winning team on a year-to-year basis, like maybe one loss and a consistent state champion probably in your division to be considered part of the top teams, is what you guys are trying to say. What an interesting topic to start off the show, by the way. Congratulations to Bishop Gorman. We've been talking about this for a couple of years, not Bishop Gorman in general, but when we talk about Vegas sports, I don't know if there's a faster growing sports market in America right now. I don't think there is. I don't think there's a faster growing sports market. Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, the NBA, the WNBA, and now you got the high school footballs on the map there, dude. It's crazy right now in Vegas. What a wonderful place to be right now if you're in sports. This is what Max Preps, okay, gotcha, had on their plate, and they had to pick a national champ out of these 3 this season. Oh my gosh, really? But you're saying that the top 100 is decided by Max Preps, correct? Is what you guys are getting at? Because then, because Larry B is saying, okay, number 1 Bishop Gorman, Class 5A Division 1 champs, Nevada. It is like, dude, it's almost like a college football playoff committee. It's crazy. Um, Bishop Gorman played 4 teams in the top 100 this year, so they all must be in Nevada. Um, uh, Cheminada, Madonna, FH, so it's Florida State champs, played 4 teams in the top 100. Okay, they went undefeated, won 14 games. That's kind of crazy that they didn't win. I'm guessing that I'm guessing that Bishop Gorman played 4 teams with higher rankings than what Chaminade Madonna. I'm guessing that's how it's pronounced. CM High School FHSAA, the Florida State champs. Um, CIF. So the California State champs went 13-1. Okay, that kind of separated them, but they played 11 teams who finished in the top 100 this season. Only loss was top 5 St. John Bosco. Yeah, St. John Bosco's nutty. In the regular season, who they later beat 35-7 in the playoffs. What? Right. So yeah, that's basically how these rankings. So like Bishop Gorman probably played 4 teams in the top 100. Their the top two wins or whatever against those teams were probably top 20 teams, and then the other ones could have been anywhere else. Whereas these other guys probably were top 50 teams. I don't know. It's just that's just kind of crazy, man, when you look at it like that. And it definitely is like a strength of schedule type thing when you look at it. It sounds like a committee to me. They sound like a committee. And that is who Larry B says, and that is who the committee had to choose from. Okay. I mean, these are great choices. I'm a little surprised that the Florida team didn't win it all, based on what you're telling me. And they played 14 games, not 12. Um, Same number of teams in the top 100. You can't really control who you play necessarily. That California one though, that one's badass. To beat St. John Bosco, um, and you won 11 games, or at least won 10 games against teams that finished in the top 100 this season. That's nuts to me. That's nuts. Um, yeah, dude, I wouldn't want to be on that committee. There's no way that those guys aren't scrutinized. Max Preps has to be getting railed on a consistent basis based on their opinions. And what are their qualifications? Like these writers, were they big time high school football players? Were they big time college football players? Have they been college football coaches and maybe have a lifelong experience as a football coach and can really make a solid judgment, or are they just writers like baseball? This is interesting conversation. I mean, think about it. Like, what if these people at Max Prep are just like baseball writers? The same idiots who pick the Baseball Hall of Fame every year and leave Barry Bonds and you know Pete Rose out because they think they cheated. I mean, that's crazy to me. That's what it sounds like. What if these guys were just writers? I thought Master Day didn't win. Yes, there's a small Cali bias, but 11 top. Yeah, that's part of what I just said. I'm really surprised the California team didn't get the nod. When you play 11 teams in the top 100, if that's what happened, that's crazy. That's nutty. Um, okay, it'll be interesting to see what kind of Division One talent comes out of there. I'm definitely going to do some research. Um, yeah, I'm definitely going to do some research on that. Where these players are going, stuff like that. Awesome. Well, congratulations to Bishop Gorman. Congratulations to the Raiders. We'll go ahead and dive into them. Why not? Actually, we're going to go to break. When we get back, we're going to dive right into the Raiders' Victory Tuesday and finish up with the Golden Knights here on the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is Muir inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
Everybody, this is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the '08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your 5-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
Welcome back from the break. This is Cale Henderson, the host of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Playing drops from the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, hosted by Taryn Rodriguez himself, 3 and Out, Larry B, the 3 and Out College Edition, actually. Our boy Taryn Rodriguez and Larry B double team that. Set Point, which is also run by Taryn Rodriguez, busy man here. And he was actually at the national championship. He watched Texas win. Bit heartbreaking for us Huskers, but we also know that we have an extremely young volleyball team, and they're probably going to win a couple straight natties at this point. They're that talented. They're freaky talented. I don't think they had a single senior on their team this year, so we're excited to see what the future holds. But what a great season, man! 33-2, and you lose to a Texas Longhorns team. First of all, I ain't gonna lie, I watch volleyball for specific reasons. Okay. Some of them Texas girls. Yeah. But they're great athletes too. They're tall, man. What? It was a good match. It was a great match. I know it was in favor of Texas, but it was a great match. Oh no. I wasn't at the national championship. I was live tweeting. Oh man. Gosh, that would have been cool. You should have just said, "Yep, I was there." It would have looked cool. But glad you're honest. Yeah, it was a great national championship game. Even if it was one-sided, man. I thought the tournament was great this year. Yeah, man, the Huskers are going to destroy everyone. Absolutely. Absolutely. They're so young. I didn't realize they didn't have a senior on their team this year. Like, they're going to be good for years to come. Unbelievably good. And 33-2, that's nothing to hang your hat on. Congratulations to Texas. And I say all this because the man, Taryn Rodriguez, is here. I will be at the NCAA Men's Volleyball National Championship in May. That's badass. Where's that? Is that in California? Are they hosting that in California, Taryn? Yeah, I mean, the Neutral Zone is probably my favorite drop here. IE Sports Radio, we played them. Adam Karnick does a great job. Um, Look, we have some great shows here, guys. And don't fret. Like, if you miss shows, no big deal. You guys could catch us on the Spreaker app, Spotify, Apple Pods, Google Pods. I mean, I'm serious. Like, share, follow, listen to our shows. Helps the algorithms, helps our shows. If you guys want to get at us on our Twitter forums, at SinCity_IESR, at Kale_Henderson, where we talk all things Vegas sports, join in, reach out. We're always willing to speak. Speaking of Vegas sports, I don't know if anything's stronger right now, but dude, what about the excitement for the Raiders? A franchise record, right? And it happened in Vegas, but a franchise record for a team that's been around so long. They put up 63 points in an NFL game. I don't know if I read it correctly, but it was during the game, and they said I think 60 points has been eclipsed by teams, maybe 9 times total in the more than 100 years the NFL has been in business. Yeah, that's crazy. 63 points, and it was against your rival. So I'll say it like this, and I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I think we could spend almost the whole show doing it. I'm interested in talking about what's next for the AFC West because it is a tough division, man. We were kind of diving into that, and then we got into reading about Bishop Gorman and went off on a tangent there. So I apologize for getting off track, but we're back on it, man. I mean, it was Vegas sports, so it was relevant, and I know Larry ain't gonna get after me for that. But we got to talk about the AFC West because it's so relevant to our show. It's so relevant to our team. Um, Reality is the Chargers are probably going to get better this offseason because they're going to bring in a coach that can maximize the talents of Justin Herbert, who, to me, is the second or third most talented quarterback in this league. Patty Mahomes is obviously the top guy. Don't get me wrong. Then you got Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. If I wanted to start a franchise with the three of them, I'm not going to lie to you, I'd take Herbert. I think he has got unbelievable arm talent, mobility. He's 6'6". I mean, I would take him in a heartbeat. And he's improving on a year-to-year basis. And under his first year under Kellen Moore, man, they were doing some really good things. The defense was the issue this year. So I'm interested to see what happened because the Chiefs are the Chiefs. Andy Reid's going to be there as long as he wants to be there. The Chiefs had won one Super Bowl before Andy Reid showed up. Now they've won 2, 3 total. The Denver Broncos are getting better under Sean Payton, and he doesn't even have his guys in there yet, if we're being honest. He doesn't have his dudes yet. I'm not even sure if Russell's his guy, but he's been a big supporter of Russ, and Russ has actually had a sneaky good year, statistically. Like, I want to say he's top 5 in touchdown passes this year. Russell's having a hell of a season, considering they don't have an offensive line. So the Broncos are better. The Chiefs are they're very good. They're still top of our division. They're slipping right now because they're missing an elite pass catcher on the outside because, Kadarius Toney just ain't getting it. Valdez Scantling, I mean, he was the third receiver for the Packers for years. I mean, let's be honest, he was the third receiver. It was usually, Devontae Adams, a tight end, and then Scantling, who kind of, excellent player. Don't get me wrong. I'm just being real with you. I don't know, man. I look at the Chargers, the Raiders. Okay, Raiders. They're going to find a head coach as well. I think they have a good head coach right now. I think that this dude, with the way the Raiders have played with him or for him, I truly believe that he's going to have a good shot to make it this time. I think Mark Davis learned from the Rich Bisaccia situation, and I think he's going to give Antonio Pierce a fair shot at this deal. If we're being honest, Rich Bisaccia wasn't even thought of. Like, Mark had his idea of who he wanted and went after him. It was a piss poor decision, right? It's obvious he didn't have a committee helping him because I don't think majority of the committee would say, oh, yeah, Josh McDaniels should be your guy, right? And you passed up off. If you would have offered Harbaugh $10 million a year, I'm sure he would have taken it. Listen, guys, I mean this when I say it. I think a professional football coach, that job is easier than being a college football coach. College football coaches have no lives. They work 360 days out of the year. And even on their time off, they still have to be ready and available to recruit whenever needed, because that's how it is, man. That's the landscape of college football. You are working 365. I have no idea how Nick Saban's done it for years. I have no idea how he continues to put together national championship contenders with the stress of college football the way it is. Like he's a factory. He's a factory for NFL players. He's a factory for talented guys. And I'll tell you what, man, when it's just college football is different. So I ultimately think that Jim Harbaugh will be in the NFL next year, barring a national championship with Michigan and like $12 million a year. Yeah, 100%, Larry. Like at least in the NFL, you have some time off, right? Like you could take 2 to 3 weeks off if you need to. In college football, you cannot do that. You cannot take 2 to 3 weeks off and expect to remain in the top 5 recruiting. Period. There's just no way. He said, I don't even want to, Kel, you coach. Yeah, well, you know what? Listen, college, I would never do it. I wouldn't say that, man, because you got to listen. Okay, hear me out on this, right? Yes, it's stressful, but you're getting paid to do something you love. And college money is good money. Like even the D3s, you're making $60,000 a year, which isn't terrible for a position coach, right? You get into those OCs and head coaches, obviously, is when you start to get closer to the 6 figures. But college, that's different because you're getting paid to do what you love to do. That's not even work to me. I would love that. I would love to be a college coach. That's where my energy would probably be best spent. But I'm getting my reps in high school. Because there's so much you can learn from the high school game. And majority of the college coaches out there, they start in high school anyway and move their way up. So that's my goal. And honestly, you know how it is, bro. It is about who you know, not what you know. Okay? Because what I know is pretty advanced compared to a lot of the coaches out there in the network, right? I've studied this game for a long time. I could write an offense, defense, talk. I'm confident I could coach almost any position on the field. And that's not what's holding me back. It's the fact that I don't know those people in positions, because that's the NFL is what it is, right? I was talking to our defensive coordinator at Standing Bear. Garrett Johns was a Husker defensive lineman. He actually had Barrett Ruud, legendary Husker and former NFL linebacker, in his house, and they went like 3 hours over the 4-2-5 defense because we're looking at maybe doing a hybrid 3-4 4-2-5 at Standing Bear. And like Barrett Ruud basically said it. He's like, you just got to have one friend in the NFL and you'll have a job for life. As long as you have one friend, you'll have a job for life. You may not be in that same place forever, but once you get experience in the NFL, teams are like, okay, this guy's got experience, I got to bring him in, right? That's kind of how the NFL works. College isn't much different. You have to know people, man. You have to network. You have to have strong sales skills. And that's why I would love to be in college, because I've been in sales since I was 18. And that would be, recruiting would be something that would be easy for me. I personally believe that would be easier than getting used to the speed of the game and coaching the speed of the game. That would catch up, but I know that one thing I could do really well is gain interest for the university. But dude, college would be a blast, right? High school's a blast. I have a good time. It is time commitment. But I think it just depends on the program you're part of. I will say this: the coach I work for, we're out of there in 2 hours, dude. Like legit, I'm there at 3:15. I'm usually gone by 5:45, right? So about 2.5 hours. But you know how it is, man. 15 minutes before, warming up, shooting the crap with the players, making sure they're getting their pre-practice routines in, and then post-practice, talk to your unit or talk to your position group. Make sure they're staying on top of the film. They're staying on top of what they need to do to get better. Yeah, you have to really, really love coaching to coach. I just can't. Well, I think you love coaching, man. I just think it's time stuff. I really do think you love the game and you love coaching. It's just time. Between the station, school, well, for a long time it was school for you, and you're probably trying to get that teaching jobs and stuff. Work all day as a teacher, and I don't want to be there 12 hours a day. I don't blame you. Yeah. Thankfully, I do have a good coach. Yeah, I have a great head coach. Actually, we talk almost on a daily basis, man. It's kind of crazy. I've never had a working relationship like this. He's a good dude, and I'm lucky, man. But sometimes it's how you approach the situation. I straight up told the guy in my interviews, if you want me, you're gonna have to be my mentor. Period. He said, I need to run IE Sports Radio. Haha, that's a full-time job. Yeah, it probably is, man. But it's going to pay off sooner or later. It probably already is a payoff morally. You probably love it. But I'm just saying, it's going to pay off sooner or later. I think there's a lot of good content on this show. It's part of the reason why I tell you folks, man, listen to the shows. Get on Spotify, get on Spreaker, Google Pods, Apple Pods. We're everywhere. Listen, like, follow, enjoy the shows. We have some great content creators here at IE Sports Radio. Podcasters. I don't know why I said content creators. We should be more content creators. And I need to head that because that's what I do at Allo. I need to do a better job of that. He said, yes, it is. Haha. I like how you said wanted him to be your mentor. That's awesome. Yeah, you have to. You have to. If you want to get something out of that dude, you have to have boundaries, right? And I straight up said, I can go to different high schools here in Lincoln, but if you want to bring me on, you're going to need to be my mentor. You're going to have to give me a path to you have to have a path in mind, man. If you have a goal, you need to be able to express your goal. You have to tell that person, hey, this is where I want to be. If you're not willing to do that, then you don't want it bad enough, man. And if they're not willing to honor that, if they're not willing to say, hey, yeah, I love that you're saying this, and they want to hire you because you have goals, because you're driven, then that ain't the place you want to be anyway. So, you know how it is, Larry. I've always been upfront with you on every conversation, whether it's good or bad. I don't think we've ever had a bad altercation, but I think we have a working relationship that's honest, and we'd be real with each other. And I'd tell you if I didn't have the time to do this anymore, like that's part of life, man. It's part of working relationships. And it's funny we talk about that because the NFL's like that. Like you need to know people to get an opportunity. Back to the Chargers because they're part of the AFC West, dude. What a gold mine of a job this is going to be. I have 3 coaches that I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, Taryn, because I know you've been listening. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I have 3 coaches that I think are likely going to be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Number 1, I think it's Bill Belichick. I think Bill Belichick, he's getting to his last days in New England. If I'm Robert Kraft, I approach Bill, say, hey, how can we make this work? Can you give up your GM duties? If I'm Bill, I've basically been the best head coach and GM for the last 20 years. Kiss my ass. So they agree to part ways. Because sometimes it's just good to get a fresh start, right? They have a good team in New England, or they have the makings of a good team in New England. You just got to move on. Knowing people's crucial. Good old Bill, Larry says, knowing people's crucial. Taryn Rodriguez says, imagine that. Dude, Bill Belichick in a Chargers uniform, 1, would be weird. 2, LA would get really boring, but 3, they'd win a lot of games because all they have is talent on that team. And if you're Bill, you are no longer dumb. You're like, okay, I can't just draft a Mac Jones and win a bunch of games. I need to have an elite quarterback. Justin Herbert's an elite quarterback. Inherit Justin Herbert, teach him the game like you taught Tom the game. Go and win a couple Super Bowls. He'd be a legend. Dude, he's already a legend. He's already the greatest of all time. Imagine if he shows up to the Chargers, a Chargers team with zero Super Bowls in their existence, and the dude wins 1 or 2 before he retires. He'd be an absolute, he's already a legend. He'd be unbelievable. Like he's already the greatest of all time, Bill is. But imagine him going to another situation with a great quarterback, teaching them the game and getting them in a position to win, especially in the AFC West, which is like the toughest division in football. Really, really competitive. One of the toughest divisions in football. Dude, that'd be crazy. So Bill is my number 1 option for the Chargers, right? Jim Harbaugh is 2. I think if Jim really wants a talented quarterback and he wants to give the NFL a fair shake, if I were him, I would choose the Chargers. But something tells me Jim Harbaugh could be the next Raiders head coach. And that's where this is all relevant to the Raiders. Because if Bill shows up in Los Angeles and Jim Harbaugh is in Las Vegas, then you have Sean Payton in Denver and you have Andy Reid in Kansas City. Dude, what an unbelievable set of coaches in a division. And I'm calling it, man. I think there's a really good chance that these things happen, right? I think it's a really good chance. Either way, you're going to have people throwing their hat at the Chargers because of Justin Herbert. And I think the Chargers need to use that chip. They've already paid the guy, they've extended him, okay? You've done what you had to do. His value can't be higher. Go after somebody that really wants to coach the kid. You have a ton of talent on defense. I don't know if all that's going to stay. But if you fortify the defensive lines, the Chargers are going to be extremely, extremely scary team. Especially if they can keep Herbert healthy. The Raiders, on the other hand, we need a quarterback. That's obvious. We have to fortify our offensive line. We have to improve on the defensive line, even though they've been unbelievably productive. And Patrick Graham deserves an extension no matter who the coach is. Patrick Graham should stay because the stuff he's done with the group of guys he has on his roster has been absolutely unbelievable. Like Patrick Graham is probably, he has the most improved defense in the NFL. Like I want to say the Raiders are top 15 for the first, they're in the top 20 for the first time in 20 years. They're in the top 15 for the first time in 20 plus years. Like, and that's Patrick Graham's system working out for players and utilizing players the way he needs to. I honestly feel like Patrick Graham is the dude. The other coach that I am like, I hope it doesn't happen, but God damn it if it did. Imagine if John Gruden got an opportunity with the Chargers. I don't think his lifeline is dead with the Raiders. I think Mark Davis was forced to ask him to resign. I think the NFL is so skittish about this lawsuit and they know they're going to lose and have to pay big money. They might drop everything and say, yeah, we'll pay your contract. If you drop the lawsuit, you're welcome back to the NFL. Imagine if John Gruden got a hold of Justin Herbert. Holy hell. He won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson's for F's sake, dude. He made Derek Carr look really, really good for a couple years. Really good. Like top 10 quarterback good for a couple years. If John Gruden doesn't get the Saints job when Dennis Allen is let go, and if Mark Davis doesn't really want to bring him back, if John Gruden can somehow get his ass in Los Angeles, that would be nuts. As long as Gruden doesn't turn the game back into the 1980s. He didn't really do that with the Raiders, though. It was definitely modernized, what he did. I think the run game was the worst part when he was there. But, man, Derek Carr threw for 4,000 yards for 3 straight seasons, and he didn't even really have a number one wide receiver, dude. For real. Nelson Aguilar was his best receiver in the time he was here. In the time John Gruden was here. Henry Ruggs, you guys know about that. He got into trouble. Brian Edwards was the number 2 guy. You did have Darren Waller, which was stunning. And guess what? John Gruden saw him. He found him at practice at Ravens, and he got him signed. I think John would bring his nomenclature and the verbiage. Like his plays are just way too damn long. But if Justin Herbert could get that kind of coaching, man, I can't imagine. With his elite traits, I can't imagine. You just have so many possibilities, Taryn. Like, I honestly feel like the owner needs to find their GM, like the top guy, the most talented guy in the NFL right now, or maybe even poach another GM from somebody else. I think they need to do that in a heartbeat. And then when you get that done, you're going to have your pick of the litter for coaches because Justin Herbert's just that good. The Raiders, on the other hand, man, like unless you're John Gruden, you want to come back to the Raiders because you love the Raiders. Unless you're Jim Harbaugh because you love the Raiders and you have a relationship with Mark Davis, I personally believe that Antonio Pierce is probably the next head coach of the Raiders. Like, listen, I've said this for months. If Jim Harbaugh, or ever since Josh McDaniels was fired, if Jim Harbaugh is not 100%, like if he's 100% in, you go hire Jim Harbaugh because he wins everywhere he goes. He was winning against Pete Carroll for F's sake when Pete Carroll showed up and was creating the Legion of Boom. Like, that's how good of a coach he was. Their defenses, no matter where he goes, whether it's Stanford, whether it's Michigan, whether it's San Francisco, the 49ers, their defenses are always elite. Their run game is always elite, and they're one of the top teams in play action every year. The dude just knows how to win football games. You want to talk about the 1980s. That guy runs multiple tight end sets still. More than anybody in college football. Like that dude's old school for sure. But that's what we're looking at, man. The Raiders have to think outside the box this time, and I wouldn't even be surprised if they revisit the Rich Bisaccia situation. But Antonio Pierce, after last week's game, if they can be competitive, I promise you guys this: if the Raiders can be competitive against the Chiefs, not get blown out, but be competitive against the Chiefs, I think that Antonio Pierce will probably get the job. Right? Chiefs have a top 5 defense. I think Aiden O'Connell is going to struggle. If the Raiders somehow keep it close, keep it within a score, I think Antonio Pierce will have the job. Because imagine what Antonio Pierce can do when Champ Kelly has an offseason to pick players, when Antonio Pierce has an offseason to go out and get his coordinators with his connections. He's been in the league a long time, man. As a player, now as a coach. I don't know. I could see a lot of really good things. Jim Harbaugh, if he shows up, you already know he's going to maximize whoever's at quarterback. Look what he did with Alex Smith. Look what he did with Colin Kaepernick. 100% think that's possible. There's a lot of positives, man. You have Davante Adams. If I'm the Raiders, here's what's next, right? And we're going to go ahead and dive into that because I think it's really important. What's next is this. I think the Raiders really have to evaluate some of the guys on the roster. When John Gruden showed up, he was just flogged because he traded away Khalil Mack. And then he traded away Amari Cooper. When you look at that situation, those weren't his guys. When you look at the situation, Reggie McKenzie did so badly on the draft that John Gruden basically said, I have to create some picks. We have to get some young guys in here. We have to infuse some talent on this team. And even if they didn't do a great job with their drafts, actually when you look at it now, a lot of those guys are still playing and they're doing really well. Cleveland Farrell's playing really well for the Niners. There's a bunch of players, like for example, Lynn Bowden, the guy that they basically just shipped off after spending a third-round pick on them after training camp. He's playing pretty well for the Saints right now. We all know about Darren Waller. They found him. Listen, all the crap that John Gruden and Mike Mayock got, they got a bunch of players still playing, and they're playing pretty well. Max Crosby included. So if you're the Raiders, you really have to look at this roster. I said this last year, and I meant it because I know how the Patriots think, and I know how some of them guys think. I don't know if Davante Adams will be back next season. If you have the ability to trade him for a first and a third or a first and a fourth, I think you do it. I do. And then you go after, a top guy like Marvin Harrison or something like that, or trade up for that quarterback that you've been looking for, and then just get a really talented receiver the best you can. You're going to have loads of cap space if you trade Davante Adams away. You're going to have loads of cap space anyway. I think the Raiders are projected to have $60 to $70+ million next season, this next offseason. So they're going to be able to fill the needs of the team. It's just how do you do it? And the quarterback's the biggest need. I have a hard time believing they won't pick somebody in the top 10 or at least try and squeeze up and get one of the top guys. Maybe not Drake May. I would love to see Jaden Daniels for some reason. I don't know. I have a weird faith in Jaden Daniels. He's got an excellent arm. I think he's a hell of a player. Yeah, he wouldn't surprise me. Another one, that dude out of Notre Dame. I've watched him for years. The Elite 11 stuff. What do they call that? QB1 on Netflix. Sam, I don't know why I miss it. They call him Pat McAfee calls him Football Jesus. That's hilarious. If he was this early second round pick, I'd be okay with it because he's your prototypical pocket passer, man, and he can move out of the pocket if you need him to. And he's smart and he throws the ball well and in good spots. So I think he'd be a good pickup. There's just a lot of really good options for the Raiders they can go after, and there's no way there won't be some people available this offseason. But the reality is this. Whoever gets the job is going to have to reinstill exactly what Antonio Pierce has. It's about being physical. It's about doing the Raider way and getting after it. Because that's what's going to set the tone. I truly believe, and it sounds stupid, but I truly believe that Davante Adams should be traded. I truly believe that if you can, you move on from Josh Jacobs and you go running back by committee. You have to modernize what you're trying to do. Yes, you will lose some talented players, but you're going to be able to refill that roster full of young, talented guys that you can develop. The quarterback being the number one priority this offseason, because I like Aiden O'Connell. I think he's shown improvement at times. The 4 touchdowns in the first half was fantastic last week. Reality, that was against the Chargers defense that struggled all year. Everybody's get-right game this year was the Chargers. Everybody's get-right game this year was a Brandon Staley defense. Aiden O'Connell's, I like him. He's probably going to be an unbelievable backup for years to come. And cheap, too, for the Raiders if he wants to stay there. I think you go out and get your guy, man. I think Caleb Williams is out of the question. I think he's priced out. If you can go up and get Drake May, do it. He's got probably the most upside in this draft at quarterback, the most talent. He's still raw, right? But Jaden Daniels would not be a bad prospect, bro. Jaden Daniels would not be a bad prospect at all. I mean, let's look at the draft class, right? According to PFF, Caleb Williams is the clear, surefire number one. We get it. He's probably going to be with the Bears. I don't think the Bears trade back again. I think that'd be stupid. Unless you're really sold on Justin Fields, then you trade back and you get a host of players. You're good to go. Drake May, I think Caleb Williams and Drake May go 1 and 2. I truly do. I believe that. According to PFF, Bo Nix is the third best quarterback in college football. I don't know if I quite agree with that. I could totally see Bo Nix with his playmaking ability and his productivity at Oregon. I think that could get him to a late first rounder. I don't see him being a top 10 pick. Jaden Daniels, I know, will be a top 10 pick. I think the Heisman killed it. I think the Heisman helped him a ton. Winning the Heisman was unbelievable. I'd love to see him. I I would say this. I think Jaden Daniels makes the most sense for the Raiders. I think Drake May would have the most upside and would be the best possible option for the Raiders, considering his upside. Caleb Williams, I just think, is whoever wants number one is going to have to pay a lot for him, because Caleb Williams has been the top quarterback the last couple of years, right? Let's be real. If Chicago, what a great position Chicago is in, by the way. You can either trade Justin Fields, probably get a first rounder from a team because of his talent, and draft Caleb Williams while getting him another receiver, or you trade away the number one pick again, stay in the top 10 if you can, get multiple first round picks this upcoming year. You have plenty of cap space. Like, the Bears are in the best position out of everybody because they, other than Eberflus, and maybe he isn't going to be back, the next coach has no pressure and they can decide what they want to do with the number one pick again, just like they did with Carolina. Although I think Caleb Williams is a better draft prospect than Bryce Young was. A lot of options. Jaden Daniels, it makes the most sense. Michael Penix Jr. is totally interesting, man. Totally interesting. I would say this. Then they have Shedeur Sanders in this situation, and I think that is weird because this was done in November 27th. As far as I know, Shedeur Sanders is returning to Colorado, so I don't think he'll be there. Carson Beck, ranked 7th. So I think he's returning to Georgia too. I don't think he'll be there. J.J. McCarthy is really interesting. Seriously, J.J. McCarthy is interesting. He has the arm. I think he's played behind one of the best offensive lines we've seen in college football history. I truly believe that, and it feels like they have a plethora of running backs on a consistent basis. But I think he's a gamer, man. And I think he can throw the ball really well. And he can run if you need him to, too. JJ had his doubts, and then he threw bombs against TCU. He wasn't the reason they lost. Yes, he had an ill-advised throw, but that defense of Michigan just gave up a ton of points against TCU last year. JJ showed up. He played really well. I don't know why Quinn Ewers is here. Riley Leonard, Quinn Ewers, Riley Leonard, Carson Beck, Shedeur Sanders, they're all returning to college. So I think this was just a list made after the season as the top quarterbacks. I agree with their list. I like where they have a lot of these guys. But the reality is, like, I think like 4 or 5 of them won't even be part of this. Michael Penix Jr. is probably the most intriguing guy in this draft. And I think it's because, first off, I think he's small. So I look at him and I see Bryce Young, just taller. But I see Bryce Young. He's got all the ability. I think Washington had one hell of a year, and we're going to find out how good Michael Penix Jr. really is against Texas. There's a good chance Washington's the representative of the national. It wouldn't surprise me if they're one half of the national championship competition. Washington's a good football team. And I think they got a better matchup than Michigan did, if we're being honest. Like Texas is a really, really good football team. Steve Sarkisian's got an unbelievable machine going there, and it's going to be good for years to come, especially if Arch decides to stay. That's going to be an unbelievable team for a few years to come. And Texas could very well beat Washington because they're one of those teams that's built to beat SEC teams. I don't know if Washington is. That's going to be a hell of a game to watch. Michael Penix Jr., that is his tryout for the NFL. Kind of like C.J. Stroud last year against Georgia. Like everyone had doubts with C.J. Stroud. They're like, hey, is this guy just a product of Ohio State and all the talent they have? No, he balled out against Georgia. Like they were a field goal away from representing being in the national title game against Alabama last year. Sorry, against TCU last year. Apologies. They were that close. And C.J. Stroud was a huge reason for that. I mean, he was balling, man. He was making anticipatory throws, everything. So C.J. Stroud and Michael Penix could be in that same line where it's like Penix has all the tools, maybe not the same tools as Stroud. Stroud's special. But Michael Penix, if he can show up and has a great game, even if they lose, and he puts up 300 yards against this Texas defense and 4 touchdowns and minimizes turnovers, he's going to do nothing but rise his stock because they beat a top 10 Oregon twice. He played well in both of those games. They whooped on USC. He played well in those games. Michael Penix was battling injuries this year, still played really well. He was a Heisman finalist. He's just so intriguing, man. He's so intriguing. Him and Jaden Daniels, back and forth. I don't know. If I'm the Raiders, I go Jaden Daniels because I don't think Drake May or Caleb Williams will be available. Period. I just don't think they will be there. If I'm the Raiders and you're picking in the top 10 and Jaden Daniels falls to you, you don't have to trade up for him. Take him. I think he's safe. He's 6'4". He's like 215 pounds. He could put on 10 pounds in the NFL. He's got an arm. He's smart. He played in a tough system under Brian Kelly, but he was very productive. He wasn't the reason LSU wasn't a contending team because he just played really good ball, and he runs the ball well too. He can get out of the pocket and make throws if he needs to. He's tall. He's lanky. He could stand to put on a few pounds, but he's got the arm talent. He can do it, man. He can do it. He's a dual threat quarterback. Unbelievable quarterback. I think he's very talented. There's a reason why he was a Heisman on a 3-loss team. He's special. You could tell he focused this year on playing better under pressure against the blitz, all that jazz. Jaden Daniels is a great option for the Raiders, and I really think that they should look into it. Truly think that. I think that's going to set a different light with the Raiders, especially if you have an African-American coach and Antonio Pierce. Regardless, bring Jaden Daniels in, have Aiden push him. If Jaden isn't ready in year 1, good. It's fine. No big deal. Start Aiden until you can. But Jaden Daniels is a stud. So he would be my pick as of right now. I feel like the most realistic pick. But if Michael Penix, they gave him a shot, I wouldn't be upset. If they looked at J.J. McCarthy later on in the first round or maybe early in the second, I wouldn't be upset with that either. He's got the body type that the Raiders are looking for, and he's a dual threat guy. He can make throws. I don't know. I think the Raiders have a lot of bright spots, but if they're going to win games, they have to really focus on the quarterback position, and they have to focus on the fronts. They can improve on the fronts, both sides of the ball. That's what's going to win the division for years to come. If I'm Jim Harbaugh, I take the Raiders' job. If I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm obviously really intrigued in Justin Herbert, but I take the Raiders' job. The marketability in Las Vegas is unbelievable right now. There's just something cooking there, dude. If I'm the Raiders and Jim Harbaugh's interested, you go after him. If not, I think Antonio Pierce has a really good shot of staying on. And I'd be okay with it because I love his guts, man. I love his moxie. I love what he's trying to do with this team. Give him an offseason to train players, to bring on his own staff, and to get after it. And I think we'll see some really good results from the Raiders for years to come. You guys understand what it is. Tune in every Tuesday evening from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Happy holidays, guys. Jingle bells all the way. Get after it. Have a good time with your family. This is a tough time of year for a lot of folks, so if you guys can, give back. the best you can. Invite people that you know are good people but are lonely this time of year. Invite them to your homes. I mean it, man. The holidays are a tough time for a lot of folks. Make sure you're there for them. Be there. Karma. It's good karma. And as always, folks, other than the happy holidays, love, peace, and hair grease.